A Sapphire Running Zone podcast.
Hi everyone, this is Tim from the Sapphire Running Zone, and this is another in our Runner Stories podcast. And today I'm really pleased to welcome Max along. Now, Max has a very long history of running and fascinating story why he got into it in the first place. So welcome, Max. Give us a little summary before we go into it in a little bit more detail, and tell us the job that you do, because obviously it's very relevant to the running world that we're all in.
Hi, Tim, and hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. Really, excited to be here and chat running. I'm currently Director of Fundraising, Marketing and Comms, a charity called Cerebra, which is a UK charity that supports children with brain conditions. So everything from autism to cerebral palsy and their families. And in terms of, my running story, I used to run at school. Was quite good at, cross country and things like that at school, and was probably the first thing that I was good at compared to other children at school. So perhaps the first time where I was popular for being good at something. So I ran throughout school, was quite good, would sort of win the city schools cross country, come top 6 in the county schools, get to the nationals, and then finish like 100, something like that. Went to university. Had a great time at university and post-university. So, discovered a rich career in drinking, smoking, going out to techno clubs, and didn't run at all. Didn't run at all. Sort of chain smoked off and on. And then about 18 years ago, we're trying to give up smoking. Me and my partner started running a little bit, literally just sort of around the block a couple of times as something to do to sort of encourage us to maintain that non-smoking path. And then she got pregnant, definitely stopped smoking. I started running a bit more. And at the time I worked for a small animal rights charity. So decided to enter a half marathon for that animal rights charity and get sponsored to do it. Completed it, raised some money, did a couple of marathons. And so each time sort of, trying to raise money for the charities for which I've worked. And that's gone from the sort of animal rights charity to British Red Cross to shelter and to where I am now. And so once I'd done a marathon and people had given me money for it, I couldn't rely on, I've only gave up smoking 3 years ago, sponsor me, or look at these weak vegan knees, surely I can't run a marathon. So sort of looked around for other things to do. I did a silly fancy dress half marathon, but then discovered that there was ultramarathons and further distances. So entered the London to Brighton ultramarathon, which was very much sort of cross country and running around the backs of houses to find paths and things like that, and finished on the beach in Brighton. And then entered further ones from there, including the tunnel ultra near Bath, raced across Scotland, track 24 hours, and quite a few others. Since then.
I've talked to quite a few people who did loads at school and then went away to uni or got into work, and it sort of drifted away and then came back to it in later life. Seems to be quite a common route for people who did start early and did a lot early.
Yeah. And I think that would have been between 15 and 20 years gap, I think. And I wonder if there's a thing where people that do it, maybe any sport, so much in those younger, childhood and teenage and later teenage years, that it's just been such, you just need to have there's a psychological bit where you're done with it for a period of time. Like my boy is with playing football, for a football team. I think he's done with it now for a bit, and he'll probably come back to it again later. And I think there's regret for not carrying it through. There's sort of regret for, no, I would probably have been so much better. I could have done all this in my 20s and my 30s and so on. But then equally, I think I've not flogged my body to death for 15 to 20 years as well. And I think that sort of stood me in good stead for, running now in my 40s and 50s.
I think that's absolutely right. I think your knees are now in the condition that they will be able to continue doing plenty of long distance running, whereas some of us are virtually not stopped. The knees are not quite in such good condition. So I think
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
real benefit for you for sure. So you did the half, and then you did a couple of marathons. So talk us through those.
Also, just to say, I've got another advantage in that I'm like about 9 stone dripping wet with jeans on. So that means that, running on tarmac is fine on the knees and fine on the ankles.
Yeah,
I know
that
not
helps.
every one of my running colleagues are so well blessed in that department. So yeah, did the Robin Hood marathon. That was my first marathon, I think. 2 hours 58, I think, was my time for that. I was a member of Vegan Runners Club as well at the time, which was great. And then I just started working for the British Red Cross, and I got a place through Vegan Runners at the London Marathon in 2009. And actually, one of the funny things on that was, sort of at the time, so this is 2009, before charities sent you letters to put on your vest for your name. So when you're running, 30, 40,000 people doing the London Marathon, thousands of spectators. They all want something to shout at you. So they'll shout, "Oh, Spider-Man, go on, Spidey." But most people, there's nothing that stands out for them to shout. But because I had my vegan runners vest on, I got, "Go on, vegan runners, go on." Vegan runners, what are they? As I ran sort of past people. And it was really good. So I'd definitely encourage anybody doing a marathon to definitely, take it, whether you're doing it for a charity or not. And I think actually a lot that you get your race number now, don't you, with your name on? But yeah, you get a lot of support from people if they can see your name clearly, and I definitely say like embrace that support and soak it up. Yeah, my London Marathon time was 2 hours 52.
That's very, very quick. So I'm intrigued, as I'm sure other people will be, as to how on earth you did those kind of times. What was your training regime like?
Yeah, so my training. So also at the time, I was my role at the British Red Cross as a fundraiser was supporting participants in runs, skydives, walks, and so on. So I was supporting people doing the marathons and Great North Run and things. And a lot of my advice would to people at the time was don't try and run the full distance in training, because that's the big thing that you're building up to. And actually, the last 4 or 5 miles, the crowd and adrenaline will take you over it. Um, but also, I remember saying to a lot of people to run time, like don't run distance, run for an amount of time. So, I mean, I don't run with a watch, and I don't know exactly how the distance of my route. But I sort of aim to go out and run for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, or just run really, really slowly for 4 hours and just sort of get those hours, those miles in the tank. I live in Sheffield, which is really hilly, so you can almost impossible to run anywhere without running up a hill. And there's hills in Sheffield that are so steep they've got handrails on the hill to help people up. There is 3 or 4 like that, and I've got one outside. So
But you're
my
being
route
serious. You're
is
being serious, are you?
yeah, yeah, genuinely, yeah, 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 absolutely. It's Sheffield's built on 7 hills like Rome, and that's where all the similarities with Rome and but it meant that my hills, I think, yeah, I ran and have done since, ran a route that has a lot of hills and is steep hills, and I felt that gives me an edge. So I could run not as far as perhaps some people in training, but 75% of it's uphill. Um, but also, I found it quite handy to run to work and run back from work. So my workplace was between 6 and 7 miles in either direction. So I'd run in the morning, with my, everything in my backpack and my change of clothes, do a day's work. There's no shower, but 9 foot, so you don't sweat a lot. Get changed to work, and then run back again. And I think that running twice a day, that even though it's not a long distance, I think that felt like that gave me a bit of an edge as well. And carrying something which you wouldn't do during a marathon race.
You were fundraising at that stage, presumably.
Yeah, yeah. So I was fundraising for the Red Cross at
Right.
that stage. That's who I work for. Friends, colleagues, family, they want to support you if you're doing something, especially something that they might not be able to do, um, and pushing yourself. I think if you've got a good reason for doing it, if the cause is good, if the challenge is something that is interesting or different or challenging. And if you're, the biggest single thing that prevents people from giving money to charity or to somebody doing something for charity is not being asked. And again, I think we probably sometimes we can put those inhibitions on ourselves and say, well, I'm not going to ask Tim again because he sponsored me for the last one. And actually, you're probably waiting to do it and mentally setting some money aside for it.
It's an interesting point, though, around the limiting factor being that you haven't asked. I mean, I think a lot of people get nervous about asking, don't they? They feel uncomfortable, particularly if it's the second or third time. But as you said, if you don't
Yeah,
ask, you don't
yeah,
get, basically.
that's right. I did after the like doing the really really long ultra marathons. I did Manchester to Liverpool, which is 50 miles, pretty flat, really accessible and open to people from all abilities, even like people that haven't run a marathon before. It's a fantastically well supported event from GB Ultras. Yeah, I say accessible people of all abilities, and with a really generous timing as well. And I wasn't going to get sponsored for it because I thought, well, nobody's going to sponsor me for this because I did 200 miles last time. And a friend said to me, well, you know what, 50 miles is a long way to drive, let alone run. So, you should ask and people will want to support. And and they were right. And I did, and people did.
So once you did the two marathons, what was your next stage?
So then so my main driver for running by this stage was getting sponsored for the charities for which I work. And so then I was like, nobody's going to sponsor me for the third marathon because they know I can do it. But then after that, I discovered runs further than a marathon, which I had no concept existed until sort of looking around for something else. I did London to Brighton, which was I think 52 miles, and that's when sort of looked into nutrition and things like that. I finished that, I think 10, like I can't remember what the time was, 10 and a half hours maybe, and a lovely finish on Brighton Beach, which was great.
How many ultras have you done now, and how many have you done for charity?
I think I did all but the Hardwick Hobble, which I did with my partner a few months ago for charity. So probably done a dozen altogether. Yeah, well, a dozen for charity altogether.
And how much have you raised altogether?
We're probably talking £25,000, maybe something like that.
Wow.
Which is all right, but there's always, I think, a thing you learn with running wherever you are, that there's always people that are more hardcore than you are. There's always people running further. So I did a 300-mile ultramarathon, but there was these other guys who were doing so on the same route. There's a marathon, there's a door marathon, there's run 50, 100, 300. There's you can run a marathon a day for 10 days. And then there was an Ironman, a double Ironman, a Quinn Ironman, and two versions of a Deco Ironman. And so equally with like raising money on sponsorship, like there's always, there's people that raise hundreds of £1,000s, isn't there? And also there's, I think a really important thing to say is that we've all got our own things that are great achievements. In running, I remember when I used to work at the Red Cross, there's a fundraiser called Margaret, she was mid-50s, never done any running in her life, and she completed the Great North Run and finished, I think, second last. And that was probably a bigger achievement than some of the things that I've done, because it's from where we're starting to where we want to get to, isn't it? And it's about
Yeah, it's all relative, but the secret is
yeah,
how long can we keep doing it for? And the one-offs are brilliant. I love hearing about them. But can
mm,
you do another one? And can you do another one? And
yeah,
this is why, I'm so interested in the donor fatigue issue, as it's sort of known in the industry, of how many times
yeah,
can you keep asking the same people? And do you have to change your approach? Now, I know you as a charity, if you're allocating guaranteed entries in an event, you look up whether someone's done that event before, because that is a limiting factor. I mean, did you mix up your fundraising approach? I mean, obviously in
mm.
half marathons and marathons, but did you take a different approach? Like for one race, did you say, right, I'm going to put on a comedy night or something to raise money and give those people something back if they sponsor me? Or
Mm.
did you pretty much take the standard approach each time?
I didn't organise other events or activities, but I've supported dozens of people who've raised money for like taking part in London Marathon, especially where it's a high minimum sponsorship to organise those sorts of events. So lots of charities will can help you organise a bucket collection. So, you can stand and if you have some fancy dress on, even better, in a supermarket or shopping centre, and you can collect 40 to £50 an hour, depending on the location and so on. They're really easy ways of just boosting your sponsorship. And you could take the kids, do it with family, help people organize maybe like a bake sale at work, quizzes at work, race nights and things like that. And they've been like great things, barbecue or we call them a fuddle in Sheffield. So everybody brings something for lunch and, and pay a bit of that money. I haven't done that, and I've always sort of just done it from like just getting people to go to my Just Giving page and sponsor. But I think I've developed a bit of a short. This is my surefire way to doing it. And I think it's important to remember that your message about sponsoring or your post about sponsoring you for your event isn't the only or the main thing that people will see on their feed or in their inbox, on that day or in that week. And most people will probably won't sponsor you. I used to see a lot of people say, I've sent an email out and I posted it on my Facebook and nobody sponsored me. But there needs to be, most people need reminders to do it, or there needs to be an urgency. So, often the urgency is there's a week to go. I need my sponsorship. But there's a number of time points in your sort of trying to get sponsored journey. I've just signed up for this crazy event. Look, it's back and forth in a tunnel for 200 miles. Sponsor me.
So you've basically got a formula and you adjust, you tweak that formula every time you
Yeah.
do an event, but you are thinking about it and you're taking time. I think there's a perception that you literally set a fundraising page up, whiz it out to your mates, and you'll
Mm,
raise a grand in a few seconds. And some people do obviously raise
yeah.
quite a bit of money, but when you're consistently doing it, it's a very different story, isn't it? And you really do have to spend the time because, I mean, you might not have those same people might not. I mean, one person might have not have sponsored you last time, but wants to sponsor you this
Mm,
time.
yeah.
And to your point about if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. But making sure you're targeting everybody
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
really controlled, thought through manner is absolutely key, isn't it?
Yes, it is definitely. And I used to have, and I'm not, it's not done for a while, but somebody I used to play five-a-side football with, and hadn't seen him for 10 years, would always pop up and sponsor me because he'd always get my email, or he'd always get the whichever method of communication it was. And yeah, that was our connection, and that was
Mm.
great.
Well, the big question now, of course, is what's next?
That's a good question. It wasn't after the last one. There was one where I promised the missus that I wouldn't do any more crazy distances. But to be fair, I did a 300-mile one after that. And now actually the family pressures are much less now. My kids are older. They don't want to spend time with their old man anymore like they used to. So I've got, a bit more time back. And yeah, so I'm looking at the bridge. It's one of the Cobain Ultra events. It's back and forth across the bridge between England and Wales. I think it's 200 miles in 55 hours, but it's very
Oh.
much open to the elements, and there's the camber to contend with as well. So yeah, that's the one I'm looking at. It's in May next year.
What I've found from some of the conversations I've had with ultra runners is they don't tend to go back to marathons. They tend to stay in the sort of ultra world. Is that happening with you? Would you feel if you're on the start line of a marathon now it was just a bit too easy, particularly when it comes to a fundraising ask? I mean, how do you think
Yeah,
impact on your fundraising?
probably wouldn't do a marathon as a fundraiser. If I did, I'd raise some money but I wouldn't be expecting to raise anywhere near as much as for a longer run. Again, I'd employ my the method, and I'd expect to, like if I got a charity place doing the London Marathon, I'd be confident of raising £2,000, perhaps with a bit more work. And in terms of the running bit, I haven't gone back and done a marathon, and literally every time I finish an ultramarathon, I think to myself and say to friends and family, I say, okay, I'm so much fitter now than I was when I did the marathon. I must be able to run a marathon faster than I did it in 2009. Because I've been running 50 miles in training, and then I've just run 200 or 300 miles or something. Like, I'm so much fitter now. And then I never get around to it. And my fitness, and I sort of, enjoy the relaxing bit, and the fitness drifts off and so on.
You're sort of off peak, would you say, at the moment then? Because you've not got your
Yeah.
rate, you've not got that race entry sorted. What are you doing in an average week now? And is it hard? Is it hard being out without a target?
Yeah. It's really hard. I find it really hard to motivate myself to get out and go for a run. And if I do, I might do probably at the moment, maybe getting out maybe between 1 and 3 times a week, but probably only running 6 miles at a time. Really, really struggling for the really struggle for the motivation because I'm not entered for something. I still run on the same training loop. So the drawback of it being a loop is you can finish and be 100 meters from home when you come back to the end of it. And that's without having that sort of motivation, or almost like the scare that, I need to get them in. It means it's too easy for me to go, actually, I won't today, it's a bit cold, or I'll just do one lap. It's fine. But then equally, when I have signed up for something, there's like usually 3 or 4 weeks of training where there isn't the pressure of getting the miles in. And that's really nice as well. But sort of doing, doing further distances. So yeah, I need to have that, that motivation, that thing that I'm aiming for to get out. So what I need to do is just enter more things.
Yeah, you do. I could talk to you for much longer, but I'm conscious that you're itching to go out for a run.
I am actually. I did actually say to my partner, is it all right if I go out for a run after work today? So yeah, I am gonna.
Yeah, look, it's been brilliant talking to you, and I look forward to having another chat when you're just about to, or maybe just finish that bridge run. Great stuff. Thanks for your time, Max.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this Sapphire Running Zone podcast. Keep checking back as we have lots more podcasts coming soon.